So, okay, don't worry about it. So this is a special Woodland Pond tradition. How many of you have heard this before? Yeah, see, they all come back. So I think we started it in 2010. Roger and Bernice are among our pioneers. And that first Christmas, Roger said he'd like to try this. And so everybody's just loved it so much. And it doesn't seem to be Christmas without hearing a Christmas carol, as only Roger can share it. So we're thrilled that he's agreed to do it one more time. And I will close the doors because, yeah, the fans are really loud, but I was just waiting for everybody to come in. And then we'll shut the doors so that you can hear him. Yeah. All right, Roger?
Anytime.
You're it.
Thank you.
Hello. I pass you all the time in the hall somewhere. But I've enjoyed doing this since I discovered there was such a thing as Charles Dickens and the Christmas Carol, which I discovered early in World War II. We would sit in the basement when there was one of these air shutdowns, and my father would go off, and he and the principal of the school were in charge of seeing that nobody attacked the school. And it was one of the dullest places to be but we were sitting in the basement because it was made into a living room for such occasions. And I remember hearing screaming over the radio, which was very unusual, but it was actually, and you wouldn't thought that the screaming would take place. It was about a Dickens Christmas Carol. And it was Lionel Barrymore playing the part of Scrooge. And that was the first time I ever heard of Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol, and what? Lionel Barrymore. See, in that short period of time, my mind went blank. Nobody else has that problem here, I'm sure. So I've come to share this with you this afternoon. And we have printed it up, that is Bernice, printed it up so that I can't lose it, because it's always lost somewhere. I have to have this handy because I don't know, what is it? Oh. Also, when I was a child, my aunt Annette moved into a smaller house, and she found something in the attic that was a surprise to her. So knowing my interest in Abraham Lincoln, she said, well, that has to go to Roger. So I inherited this, but it also has to do this style, less with Abraham Lincoln's time, but for a Dickens Christmas Carol. Marley was dead to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about it. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Mind, I don't mean to say that I know what there is particularly dead about a doornail. I might have been inclined to regard a coffin nail as the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade, but the wisdom of our ancestors is in the simile, so that you will permit me to say that Marley was dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead. Of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood years afterward on the warehouse door. Scrooge and Marley. The firm was known as Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge, and sometimes Marley. He answered to both. It was all the same to him. Once upon a time, of all good times in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge stood squeezing and grasping and scraping and covetous old sinner. Once upon a time, of all good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather, foggy withal. And the door of Scrooge's counting house was opened that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, Bob Cratchit, who in a dismal little cell beyond was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small office, but the clerk's office was so very much smaller that it looked like one piece of wood. The clerk had to warm himself by a candle, not being able to do it from an actual fire in the fireplace. Just then his nephew came in. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle. God save you." "Ah, humbug. Christmas a humbug, Uncle? You don't mean that, I'm sure." "I do. What right have you to be merry? You're poor enough." "Come then, Uncle. What right have you to be dismal? You're rich enough." "Bah, humbug. Don't be cross. What else can I be when I live in such a world of fools as this? What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with a Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. Uncle, nephew, you keep Christmas in your way and let me keep it in mine. Keep it, but you don't keep it. Well, let me leave it alone then. Much good it has ever done you. Much good may it do you. Well, I have always thought of Christmas when it has come around as a good time, kind, charitable, forgiving time. The only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut up hearts freely, and therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe that it has done me good and will do me good, and I say, God bless it. Good for you, lad. He shook his hands and clapped for the clerk, who returned them cordially. Now, there's another fellow, my clerk, Bob Cratchit, at 15 shillings a week, talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Bedlam. This lunatic, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, let new portly gentlemen in. Scrooge and Marley's, I believe. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley? Mr. Marley died 7 years ago. This very night. We have no doubt his liberality is well represented by his surviving partner. What's this? At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute who suffer greatly at this present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessaries. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comfort, sir. What? Are there no prisons? Plenty of prisons. And the union workhouses, are they in operation? They are still. Still, I would say that they were not. The treadmill and the poor law are in full vigor then? Both very busy, sir. Oh, I was afraid from what you had said at first that something had occurred to stop them in their useful course. I'm very glad to hear it. Under the impression, sir, that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind or body, a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. We choose this time because it is a time of all others when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for? Nothing. Ah, you wish to be anonymous. I wish to be left alone. Since you asked me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments that I have mentioned, and they cost me quite enough. And those who are badly off must go there. Many don't go there and cannot go there, and many would rather die. Well, if they would rather die, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. Good afternoon. Bob Cratchit said, It's shutting up time, sir. Yes, I know. It's not convenient and it's not fair. If I was to stop half a crown for it, you'd think yourself ill-used. And yet you don't make me feel ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work. Oh, it's only once a year, sir. It's a poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every December the 25th. Well, I suppose you must. But be here all the earlier the next morning. Scrooge went home to bed. He lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner, Jacob Marley. In a lowering pile of building up a yard where it had so little business to be that one could scarcely help imagining it had run there when it was playing hide and seek with the other houses and had forgotten the way out again. It was lonely enough and dreary enough, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge. Clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and he heard the noise much louder on the floors below, and then coming up the stairs, and then coming straight toward his door. Humbug, I won't believe it. His color changed when it came on through the heavy door and passed into the room. How now? What do you want with me? Much. Who are you? Ask me who I was. Well, who were you? In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley. Don't you believe me? What else would you have of my reality beyond that of your own senses, Ebenezer? Because a little thing can make them cheats. You may be a slight disorder of the stomach. You might be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's more of gravy than gravy for you, whoever you are. Humbug, I tell you. At this, the spirit raised such a frightful cry and shook his chain with such dismal and appalling noise that Scrooge held tightly to his chair. Mercy, dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me? Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me or not? I do, I must. But why do spirits walk the earth? And why do they come to me? It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth and turn to happiness. Ah, you are fettered. Tell me why. I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link and yard by yard and girded it on of my own free will. Of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you? Or would you know the length and weight of the heavy coil you bear yourself? It was full as long and heavy as the 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have labored on it since. It is a ponderous chain, Ebenezer. Oh, Jacob Marley, tell me more. Speak comfort to me, Jacob. I have none to give, Ebenezer, that comes from other realms. But you were always a good man of business. Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, benevolence were all my business. Hear me, my time is nearly gone. I will, but play don't be flowery, Jacob. I am here to warn you tonight that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate, Ebenezer. Ah, you were always a good friend to me. Thank you. You will be haunted by 3 spirits. Is that the chance and hope of which you spoke, Jacob? It is. I think I'd rather not. Without their visit, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow when the bell tolls 1. Couldn't I have more than once and get it over with, Jacob? Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third on the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more. The apparition walked backward from him and floated out on the bleak, dark night. When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that looking out of bed, he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. The hour itself and nothing else. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside by a hand. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man. Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold to me? I am. Who and what are you? I am the ghost of Christmas past. Long past? No, your past. What business brought you here? Your welfare, your reclamation. Rise and walk with me out of the window. Well, I'm mortal and liable to fall, but bear but the touch of my hand. There, and you shall be upheld in more than this. Good heaven, I was bred in this place. I was a boy here. Oh, poor boy. What's the matter? There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something. That's all. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse and asked if Scrooge knew it. Know it? Why, I was apprenticed here. They went in. At the sight of an old man in a Welsh wig, Scrooge cried out in great excitement, why, it's old Fezziwig. Bless his heart, it's Fezziwig alive again. Yo ho, me boys, no more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick, Christmas Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up before a man can say Jack Robinson. Clear away, me lads. Let's have plenty of room. Oh, hilly-ho, Dick. Cheer up, Ebenezer. In came a fiddler with a music book. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast, substantial smile. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In they all came, one after the other. Away they all went at once, 20 couple at once, hands half around and back around the other way, up the middle and down again, and around in various stages of affectionate dancing. And there were more dances, and more dances, and there were cakes, and there was a great piece of cold roast, and there were pies and plenty of beer. A small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude. Small. Oh, what's the matter? Nothing in particular. Something, I think. Now, I should like to be able to say a word or two to my own clock there just now. That's all. He was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by irresistible drowsiness, and further of being in his own bedroom. He sank into a heavy sleep. Awakening in the middle of a prodigiously tough snore and must stop and blow my nose, excuse me. And sitting up in bed and getting his thoughts together, all this time he lay upon the bed, the very core and center of a blaze of ruddy light. He began to think that the source and secret of this light might be coming from the adjoining room. And he got up and shuffled in his slippers to the door. Come in and know me better, man. It was his room. There was no doubt about that. But it had undergone a surprising transformation. The walls and ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked a perfect grove. And such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney and heaped upon the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys and geese and game and long wreaths of sausages, mince pies. I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. It was clothed in one simple green robe, bordered by fur. You've never seen the like of me before. Never. Spirit, conduct me where you will. Tonight, have you aught to teach me? Let me profit by it. Perhaps it was the pleasure the good spirit had in showing off this power of his, or else it was his own kind, generous, hearty nature, and his sympathy with all poor men everywhere that led him straight to Scrooge's clocks. For there he went and took Scrooge with him, holding on to his robe. And on the threshold of the door, the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit, dwelling with him, and sprinklings of his torch. Here comes Father now, and in came little Bob with a father with at least 3 feet of comforter falling down before him, exclusive of the fringe. His clothes lined and charred and darned up to look, brushes to look sensible, and Tiny Tim on his shoulder. Alas for Tiny Tim, he bore a little crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame. And how did little Tim behave? Asked Mrs. Cratchit. As good as gold and better. Somehow he gets so thoughtful, sitting by himself all day. And he thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me coming home that he hoped people saw him in church because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant for the men to remember on Christmas Day who it was who made lame beggars walk and blind men see. Such a hustle ensued that one would have thought a goose the rarest of all birds. And Mrs. Cratchit made the gravy hissing hot, and Master Peter mashed the potatoes with incredible vigor. And Miss Belinda sweetened up the applesauce, and Martha dusted the hot plates. There never was such a goose. They said there never was such a goose cooked. Its tenderness, its flavor, its size, its cheapness were the themes of universal admiration. It was sufficient dinner for the whole family. And then all the Cratchits drew their around the hearth in what Bob Cratchit called a circle. And at Bob Cratchit's elbow stood the family display of grass, 2 tumblers and a custard cup without a handle. Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us, which all the family re-echoed. Tiny Tim, last of all, God bless us, everyone. He sat very close to his father's side upon his little stool. Bob held his withered little hand in his, as if he loved the child and wished to keep him by his side, and dreaded that he might be taken from him. Tell me if Tiny Tim will live. I see a vacant seat in a poor chimney corner, and a crutch without an owner, carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die. No, no, oh kind spirit, say he will live, say he will be spared. What then? If he be like to die, he had better do it and decrease the surplus population. Oh, my own words. The bell struck 12. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, he beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground toward him. Am I in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come? You are about to show me the shadows of things that have not happened, but will happen in the future. Is that not so, Spirit? Ghost of the future, I fear you more than any specter I have seen, but I know your purpose is to do me good. And as I hope to live to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to bear you company and do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me? Lead on, lead on. The phantom guided on into the street. Its finger pointed to 2 businessmen. No, I don't know very much about it. I only know old Scratch is dead. Oh, when did he die? Last night, I believe. Well, what's he done with his money? Oh, I thought he'd never die. God knows. I haven't heard. Left it to his company, perhaps. He hasn't left it to me. That's all I know. Oh, it's likely to be a very cheap funeral. Upon my life, I don't know of anybody who'd go to it. Oh, I don't mind going if a lunch is provided. Spirit, I see the case of this unhappy man might be my own. My life tends that way. Merciful heavens, what is that? He recoiled in terror, for the scene had changed. And now he almost touched a bed, a bare, uncurtained bed, on which, beneath a ragged sheet, there lay something covered up, which, though it was dumb, announced itself in awful language. A pale light rising in the outer air fell straight upon this bed, and on it, plundered and bereft, unwitched, unwatched, unwept, uncared for, was the body of this man. Spirit, this is a fearful place. Let us go. Let me see some tenderness connected with the death. The ghost conducted him through several streets familiar to his feet, and then entered poor Bob Cratchit's house. And I know, my dears, when we recollect how mild he was, and how he was just a little child. We shall not quarrel easily among ourselves and forget poor Tiny Tim in doing it. Our specter, something tells me that our parting moment is nearly at hand. Tell me what man that was that lay upon that bed dead. They reached an iron gate, a churchyard. And here then, the wretched man whose name he had now to learn it lay underneath the ground. The ghost pointed downward. Scrooge crept toward it, trembling as he went. And following the finger, he read upon the stone, the neglected grave, his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge. Am I that man who lay dead upon that bed? No, spirit. Oh no, spirit, hear me, I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been. Why show me these if I am past all hope? Good spirit, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone. And holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fate reversed, an alteration in it. The phantom's hood and dress shrunk, collapsed, dwindled down into a bedpost. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. O Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised. I say it on my knees, O Jacob, on my knees. I don't know what to do. I'm as light as a feather. I'm as happy as an angel. I'm as merry as a schoolboy. And running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. What is today? Huh? What's today, my fine fellow? Today? Why, it's Christmas Day. It's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. The spirits of all three have done it all in one night. Hello. Do you know the poulterers in the street in the next corner? Why, I hope I did. An intelligent boy, a remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging there? Not the little one, but the big one. What, the one as big as me? What a delightful boy. It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my buck, it's hanging there still. Is it? Go and buy it. Oh, good. No, I'm in earnest. Go and buy it and tell them to bring it here, and I'll tell them where to take it and what direction to take it. Come back with the man in less than 5 minutes and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him faster and I'll give you half a crown. The boy was off like a shot. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit. He shan't know who sent it. He dressed himself and went out in the streets. He had not gone very far when, coming towards him, the portly gentleman who had walked into his counting house the night before and said, Scrooge and Marley, I believe, my dear sir, how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, my dear Mr. Scrooge. It was not very pleasant to you, I'm sure, but allow me to ask your pardon. Will you have the goodness? And here he asked him where to take the money. Lord bless me, my dear Mr. Scrooge. Are you serious? If you please, not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it. I assure you, will you do me that favor? My dear sir, I don't know what to say to such munificence. Don't say anything at all. Come and see me. Will you come and see me? I will. Thank you. I'm very much obliged to you. I thank you 50 times. Bless you. And he went to church and he walked about the streets and he patted little children on the head and he found that everything could yield him pleasure. And in the afternoon, he turned his steps to his nephew's house. Is your master at home, my dear? Yes, sir. Where is he, my love? He's in the dining room, sir, along with mistress. I'll show you upstairs, if you please. Thank you, he knows me. Fred, Fred, why bless my soul, who's that? It's I, your Uncle Scrooge. I've come to dinner. Will you let me in? Oh, let him in. It's a wonder he didn't shake his hand, his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. Wonderful party, wonderful games, wonderful unanimity, wonderful happiness. But he was early at the office the next morning. Oh, he was early there. If he could just catch Bob Cratchit coming late, that was what he set his heart upon. And he did, yes, he did. He was full 18 and a half minutes behind his time. Hello. What do you mean by coming here at this time of day? I am very sorry, sir. I am behind my time. You are? Yes, I think you are. Step this way, if you please. Oh, it's only once a year, sir. Shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday. Now I will tell you what, my friend. I'm not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer. And therefore, I'm about to raise your salary. A Merry Christmas, Bob. A merrier Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, than I've given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family. And we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop. Bob, make up the fires. Buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit. Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a man, good a friend, as good a master, as good a man as the good old city knew. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well if any man alive possessed the knowledge. And may that truly be said of us and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. Thank you. And now for the second performance. Thanks. No, you're a good fan. You're a good fan. You're welcome. Oh.